Paula, what we are witnessing right now, it's an extraordinary, historic moment in China.
The extent of this, the bravery of some of those people going out without masks.
Daring display of defiance.
What a smart move.
Yeah, it is.
Even just seeing people rise up like that, risking going to prison.
Simply had enough.
It obviously requires quite a lot of bravery and courage, doesn't it, for these protesters to come out onto the streets at all and face arrest?
Working class people, you have your shop to attend to, you have your small restaurant to run, you have your work factory to go to. If you every once in a while you're told, sorry, you cannot do any of that.
I was watching this vision last night and I genuinely feel because it's, people aren't allowed to protest in a normal way. People holding up sheets of white paper, they don't have a voice.
The entire country, a great number of cities facing restrictions as a result of this, facing snap lockdowns, quarantines, and people are tired of it.
Remarkable. The bravery and the courage that we've seen of people who are going out on the street, not wearing masks.
And protesters also chanted they don't want COVID tests, they don't want dictatorship, they want freedom and democracy. Witnesses told CNN as well that rows of police officers were making arrests, forcefully pushing protesters into police cars.
The BBC saw people being bundled into police cars.
Everyday people, and they've just had enough. It's been months and months of this uncertainty and so few cases and just completely overreactive measures like you've seen on television.
An indication of the Chinese Communist Party's attempt to control every aspect of life.
And the BBC is condemning China's arrest of one of its photographers while covering anti-government protests in Shanghai.
Tell us about these demonstrations. Obviously in Canada, shows of solidarity.
The world now watching to see how President Xi responds.
But at the same time, you have state media publishing headlines that are basically doubling down on zero COVID, saying it is the best policy.
We've all seen the images coming out of China throughout COVID of people being forcibly restrained, locked into their houses or apartments for weeks, even months.
Protesters are using this as an opportunity to demonstrate against censorship as well, are they not, Patrick?
But these protesters, not just angry about COVID lockdowns, they're also targeting their anger towards the supreme leader himself.
Young people, educated people as well involved, a lot of them calling for political change.
China's zero COVID thing is part of the reason we have high inflation.
Why does China need to have lockdowns when the rest of the world doesn't?
First thing they do is film them, identify them. But if it goes on for too long, they will arrest people. And if the protests grow, then certainly they will be put down violently. There's no doubt about that.
A British journalist was arrested by Chinese police.
So we've seen arrests. We know that there can be brutal crackdowns if she decides that to be the case.
There are concerns the Communist Party will retaliate.
Of these vigils, these acts, these protests.
I mean, everything you've seen on television is true and real, and most people in China aren't seeing that. You realise. The media really tamps everything down, so a lot of people don't know what's going on to the full extent that it's happening.
The critical element directing, planning, egging on the protesters comes from far-right extremist groups.
There's widespread disgust today directed at the protesters.
Man-baby Nazis, just people who just want to cause trouble, these man-babies, they want to complain about the vaccination.
And it was quite frightening. It was quite an overwhelming feeling and I wasn't prepared for it, but I noticed that they had turned. It had really turned from people that were upset to now angry.
Small fringe minority of people who are on their way to Ottawa or who are holding unacceptable views.
Wing extremists have hijacked the protests.
I am fearful for the health of the community, the people involved in this protest, the people who organised it, the people who promoted it, and the people who've been pushing it. Are also people that are spreading lies about the vaccine and about other COVID measures.
They're not there to protest, they're there for a fight. They're there to pretend to be protesting.
The convoy is attracting supporters with a wide range of views, some more extreme than others, including some Americans with massive platforms.
Over the past few days, Canadians were shocked and frankly disgusted by the behaviour displayed by some people protesting in our nation's capital.
We are now aware of a significant element from the United States that have been involved in the funding, the organising.
Members of the far right or extremist groups as well.
No doubt protests are largely about winning hearts and minds of the public. How do you think that has gone over the last few days?
a big F, a huge F for fail.
How this could have happened in our nation's capital after everything we did together.
44 arrests, but he vowed that number would increase and police would track down many of the protesters involved today.
Absolute extremists, rabid anti-vaxxers and others.
Because police were jumping on any protesters that did turn up.
I heard yesterday in the restaurant, my feed was cut. My feed was cut.
Facebook shut down some groups on its platform supporting the truckers.
Some of the protesters are construction workers, but many are not.
And thanks to these morons,
freedom of expression being used in the context of efforts to fight misinformation. And what they're really doing is they're using these ideologically appealing notions in order to push misinformation.
This sort of behaviour puts everything at risk. This sort of behaviour is unlawful, it's ugly, it will not be tolerated.
I can't say the same thing about myself when I saw these protests yesterday. Let's have a look at the vision here, because I think, again, it highlights to people, a lot of people who are looking from the outside, I mean, what is going on? There is general frustration and anger out there on the streets, but this was next level. These people were complaining about their freedoms being eroded,